Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, August 14, 2025. So we start off with Chanel and Johnny, right? So Johnny is on a lunch break from court and he comes home to tell Chanel what happened. He also tells her that, look, there's some good news. EJ, during his hypnotherapy session with his grandma Malena, that, he remembered that it wasn't him, it was actually a female. So now, it could be a variety of female assailants, probably Gabby, Kristen, Ava, and possibly her. So of course Johnny wanted to omit that part because he doesn't want his wife to be involved in this mess at all. And he is about to call his dad to say, look, avoid cross-examining her. So Chanel said, no, if it's going to help your case, I am willing for EJ to throw me under the bus. I'm willing for him to point the finger at me. But Johnny is hesitant about that because he doesn't want her to be involved in any type of way or to take the fall for something that she possibly did not do, right? So she's all for supporting him and standing by him. She said even after she's finished testifying that she wants to support him in court. He's saying, she shouldn't do it, but she wants to be beside him and hold him down, right? So EJ is back at home and he's remembering the conversation he had with Marlena, and he's thinking like, who is Marlena trying to protect? Who is, does Marlena know who is behind the shooting and not telling him? So Gwen comes in and, she asks if he wants a drink and he said, make it double. So she said, considering that you want that, maybe, it went, badly at court today. So he said, not really. Like, I do remember that, it wasn't Johnny. It was actually a female that possibly shot me. So she said, you and Johnny were only the few demerits that welcomed me here with no judgment. So I'm all for Johnny being free. So who could it be? And he said, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that Marlena knows, and she's trying to protect that person. So Gwen asked if it was Sammy. So he said no. I asked her flat out if it was Sammy, and she said no. So now the two of them are thinking maybe she's protecting Belle, and they're wondering like, why would Belle want to shoot EJ? Especially that they had their love affair and all of that. Like, why would she want to throw her own nephew under the bus? It doesn't make sense, right? So I mean, it's a lot of holes in the theory, but they're hoping that okay, they can find out who's really behind it, right? So Xander is over there, to pick up Victoria, and of course, Sarah is in her mood because of what happened the other night where he tried to assault Brady and it went a big mess. And then also because of what she heard from Gwen that, they possibly slept together. So she tells Xander, you couldn't wait until the ink dried for you to go messing around with Gwen of all people. So anyways, he said, like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she said, come on now. Gwen told me that you guys slept together. And he said, no, we did not. But we did hang out. And, I had a lot to drink after, we signed the separation papers and I was in a funk. And, one thing led to another. We did kiss. I was in their room, but it didn't go that far because I just couldn't cheat on you. I just couldn't do that. We were still legally married. I couldn't go forward with it. So she said, oh, noble of you and whatever. And so he's like, I think you would have been happy, relieved that I didn't go the full way. So she said, come on now. Like, if you were not drunk, maybe you would have done it, right? And at the end of the day, like, you did it with the most vile person, the person that really hurt me the most, and hurt us, and you had the gall to really do that, right? So she's upset, she's fierce, and Xander has this little pitiful puppy dog look on his face like, Sarah, I didn't mean it, I'm sorry that it hurt you and all that. So she's like, save it. She did slap him as well, right? Because of those two things, for almost assaulting Brady, and for what he did with Gwen. He said he didn't even go through with it with Brady, and she said, maybe you need to have a taste of medicine. But I don't agree with Sarah on that. You should not have slapped that man. And at the end of the day, why are you so angry? Like, you guys or not seeing eye to eye. It didn't go that far. Yes, you guys are legally married, but you guys are not in the same place. So I don't see why your feathers are that ruffled. You don't want to have anything to do with him. Yes, still you feel a type of way that he's messing around with Gwen or whoever. Why do you care? She also was getting asking him about his session with Marlena, and he said that Marlena took him on, and she said, that's good to hear, and I'll believe it when I see it if it works. So he said, at least I'm trying. So she said, only because I told you to. And I'm saying, Sarah, what is it that you want? You asked him to do something for your custody arrangement, and he's doing it. Like, give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, you're so hard on him. But anyways, moving forward to mom, Kristen and Rachel, they're having a little lunch. And, she's talking about the whole thing with Rachel dressing up well for school. And, Rachel is seeing beyond it that, look, her mom is overcompensating because of the whole thing at the trial, just to make her feel better. And Kristen admits to that, but she also said that, look, you know, you definitely deserve this, and I know that you did. What you did was tough, and she said, I know you have to testify as well, and it's gonna be hard. So she said she's a little bit nervous. So she said, maybe your mom can buy you clothes after, and all of that, have lunch. So she said, maybe, I'm not really fond of her style and her just wearing white. And Rachel said it's kind of weird as well. But and they both miss her. So at some point, Brady texts Kristen, because Brady's supposed to watch Rachel while Kristen goes back to the courthouse to testify. So he has a flat tire, so now she has to bring Rachel to court. And Rachel is like, no, flat out, I don't want to go back there. And she's adamant about that. And Kristen said, I have no choice. I have nobody to stay with you, right? At some point, Sarah is there, and, Rachel asks if she can, hang out with Sarah until Brady gets there. So she said, hesitant. She was hesitant about it. She doesn't want to impose, but Sarah said she's fine. She was there to just grab something to eat. She doesn't mind hanging out with her friend Rachel. So Kristen said, all right, okay. I mean, that's big of Kristen, because I know the history between them and, the whole baby switch storyline. So that's big of Kristen. Kristen's definitely growing on me. But Rachel has a mouth on her, and she's definitely, too headstrong for her own good. But I guess with her parents, her mom being her mom, I guess I understand. So Johnny makes his way to court, and EJ's there going through his notes because Marlena is the next to testify. So he said about the testifying part that, like, I know that you remember that it possibly is a female, but could you we need to talk about Chanel. So he said, yes, we get to that point, but I need to go through your notes, go through the notes with Marlena and all of that, right? Want to make sure that at the end of the day you will be exonerated. So that was really it with their conversation. So Marlena takes the stand, and EJ asks her a couple questions that, to state a profession at the university hospital, also about part of what she does, which is hypnosis, right? So he asks her to define that to the those who are in I guess who are present at the trial, to explain what it's like, what it is, what it entails. So she explains that, and also he said that he's waiving his patient confidentiality, so she was able to talk more about their sessions because he had two with her. So she did say to the jury and everybody else present that he remembers that it is a female, right, that could possibly be the one behind the shooting. So he said to them, look, that just states that, Johnny was not the one that shot me, right? So Belle comes up and asks her some questions about hypnosis, and if sometimes the subconscious mind can go over the conscious mind and all that. And she also agrees that that can happen as well, and that sometimes it cannot truly completely be valid at the same time, right? EJ did end up asking her a question again. I could not remember, please forgive me. It was something related to oh yes, I remember. So he asked her if what he said about the gender, was it actually genuine, was it actually valid? So she agrees that it was, right? There was a part where Belle was also, she did talk to Belle before the session, and she was telling Belle that, look, EJ said that it's a woman, and she asked her, do you believe that it's Sue? So she said yes, it actually is correct. So she said, do you know who's behind the shooting? So she said she has a theory. So Belle is like, we can work on it and find proof. So she said, no, you're too involved personally, professionally, so it's best to just leave you out of it, right? She was feeling bad about questioning her mom, but her mom said, "Look, you're doing your job. I will be fine, right?" So Xander is in the square with his daughter, and Gwen, of course, he's angry with Gwen. Gwen is like, "Is this Victoria?" So he's like, "Who do you think it could have been?" So I have a bone to pick with you, and you're lucky Victoria's here because I would have some awful choice words for you. So she said, what do I deserve? To what do I deserve this? So he said, like, why would you tell Sarah that we slept together? And she said, like, look, um, I may have stretched it through a little bit. So he said a little bit, like, I was just trying to make Sarah jealous. And if somebody's jealous, they would want you more and all that. So he doesn't buy, he thinks it's a lot of bull. So he said that, look, you're just giving her another reason to be mad at me. And she said, like, look, I didn't expect that was gonna happen. And you know he said, like, look, we're not friends or anything like that. So she thought they were friends and they were cool. So he's like, look, like, stay away from me, stay away from Sarah, just do not interfere no more or you will regret it. So she said, you know what, I'm tired of every sanctimonious person just always coming after me. I will definitely stay away from Sarah and from you, like, have a nice life, right? And I'm saying, go and always do these kind of things and play these kind of games and then feel a type of way when somebody doesn't want to have anything to do with her. Like, I can't understand that. So Chanel is at the bakery wrapping up because she's also next to testify at the trial. So Paulina comes over and Chanel thought that she had some council meetings. So she said, that can wait. She's there to support her daughter in case EJ tries to go after. And she just wanted to be there. So she said, look, I am fine. If EJ wants to point a finger at me for the sake of Johnny, I will do that. Like, and furthermore, like, EJ remembered that it was possibly a woman. So Paulina's surprised to hear this news and why she didn't hear it sooner. So Chanel found out recently as well. And she said maybe Johnny can be exonerated. So Chanel said, I'm not really entirely sure. Maybe EJ is gonna want to go after me a little bit harder. So this is what Paulina is saying, and she doesn't trust EJ, and Chanel doesn't either. But in the day, they just want to make sure that Johnny is free. But Paulina's just worried that it might be at it might be, affect Chanel in the type of way where, it's going to affect her business and her as a person. And she might go under the bus for something that she didn't do. And then the video is incriminating. So she said, the police doesn't think that is substantial evidence. And, Paulina said, look, you were threatening him and his life. This definitely could be used up in court. But, Chanel is not worried about it. So she is on her way to go to court. Paulina, on the other hand, is concerned about it, right? But again, why does Paulina feel like she always have to fight Chanel's battle? Like, she's not a baby. She's a grown woman. Let her handle her thing. You don't have to coddle her, right? So Sarah and Rachel are there having dessert or whatever. And, Rachel is saying, it would be nice to hang out with Victoria. Where is she? So she said that she's with her father now. So she said, I heard that you and Xander are getting divorced. Is that true? So she said, I'm not really sure yet. But just know that we are working together to make sure that Victoria is okay. And we love Victoria. That's what we have in common. So she said, I really wish that I could live with my mom and dad. It's not so. So it's just really hard, right? So I'm just surprised at how Rachel gets away with asking certain questions about people's personal life. No, the audacity of this little girl to just step in and ask those personal questions, right? I don't get it, but I can empathize with her, wanting to have that relationship where she's on the same household as her mom and dad, but obviously that's not working out, right? But, I can definitely empathize. And a lot of kids would want that kind of stability, but sometimes it doesn't work in that type of way. And at least, as Sarah said, her mom and dad are getting along and they love her, and that's what's important. So Kristen is next on the stand, and EJ asked her about, where she lived, which is, the same location as he lived. And he asked her, look, did we have any interaction on the night of the shooting? So she said, yes, I was asking you, like, where did you have my mother kept and all of that. So she was going on into detail about it. And he's saying, this was all allegedly, where I kept your mom. And, that's when you tried to, threatened me and all of that because of that. So she said, I didn't end up doing anything, and if that's the case, like if I was to do that, I would be in handcuffs away from my child, all of that kind of thing, right? So if I were to kill you, I wouldn't know where my mom is, right? So anyways, Belle asked her the question about the gun, and that she was investigated by the police, but she was set free because the bullet didn't match her gun. So Belle also asked her, did she use another gun to shoot her brother? So she said, no, I did not, right? So after the trial ended, right, you know Kristen found out about the fact that EJ thinks that it's a woman and it's not Johnny. So she's happy to hear that, and she thinks that EJ would be happy too. But at the same time, he's still not, clear on the fact that it could have been Kristen or somebody else. So he said Marlena possibly knows, and she said, so if Marlena knows, that means that I'm not the one, that did it, right? Marlena wouldn't be protecting me. So he said, you're Rachel's mom. And she said, well, Gabby's Ariana's mother, and Chanel is Johnny's wife. Like, what are you trying to say? So anyways, he said, I'm not really sure exactly who, but then Belle comes on, then they're both looking at her. So I still don't think it's possibly Belle. But let us know in the comments. Like, let me know in the comments, like, who you think it would be, right? I will see you guys tomorrow.